Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. Thrilled to be with you. I've got Matthew Maruster back. Last week we had Brian from Mountain Medical on with me, and Matthew's back.
I'm back.
He can't get enough of, the torture of doing the show with me.
No, I love it, man. I'm glad to be back.
It looks like our notifications working on the YouTube side. Last week, I don't think we had a single live viewer on YouTube, which was very unusual. And I knew it. I could tell that something was up, but there wasn't a whole lot I could do about it. And I had actually people comment, I didn't see the podcast go live today because I didn't see a notification. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured there was something going on. But it seems to be working today, so welcome, everybody, those of you joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for being a part of this episode. Today, we're going to cover legislative news updates, but we're also going to talk about the most recent Shooter Ready Challenge, which is part of that shooterreadychallenge.com thing that we do. That's an actual website that we have set up just for the Shooter Ready Challenge, which is an attempt to get more of you interested in and trying to do on a regular basis dry fire practice. So anyway, let's see who's going to be our first commenter today. Can't be that guy, Matthew.
No, the real people, the people that count. Randy, what's up, Randy?
Hey, awesome, welcome. Thanks for joining today.
And Casey.
Yeah. Ooh, pardon me if I yawn a little bit.
A little tired today?
Tired, yes. Since the weekend, I spent a couple of days getting up very early in the morning and driving 2.5 hours each way so I could go and assist Rob Latham in teaching a class. I say assist. Yeah, that's pretty much. I just wanted to. I don't know, be there, I guess, and I wanted to observe him from a perspective of as an instructor, and not be distracted with me trying to learn things as a student. And he was very kind and gracious to allow me to do that, and introduced me as his assistant instructor, which is very kind of him. Entrusted me a couple of times with his class, which also was very honored by. We had a great time, but I didn't have. It wasn't in the cards for me to stay in a hotel closer to where this class was being taught. I was up in Wyoming, and so I drove up there very, very early in the morning and got home very, very late for 2 days, and kind of feeling it still a little bit. Hey, Brian and Jason, thanks for joining. Still a little bit low in numbers today. I know we're going live at a weird time. Yeah, we only have one person watching on YouTube. I swear YouTube's broken. That just doesn't sound right. But we're a bit late today. Just a lot going on here. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I am recording from inside a new office space / warehouse that we are expanding the operations. And in fact, to those of you that are viewing here, I'll show you a couple of photos. This is kind of creates gives you the perspective. I'm getting a lot of notifications coming in here. That's silly. All right, so a lot of reflection there. See, there's all those boxes. More boxes. More boxes. I guess that's everything. That's all in the new warehouse. That's us getting ready for the next shipment of Guardian Nation members' gear that goes out once a quarter. And this quarter's gearbox is pretty good. So lots of boxes to make that happen. The new warehouse is filled with boxes.
Wow.
which is kind of nice. The warehouse isn't totally even, it's not even close to being fully set up, but we're like, we have the space. So we just started, getting the boxes ready. So anyway, looking forward to the episode today. We're going to, again, talk about Shooter Ready Challenge and talk about some of the latest legislative news updates. So I think that are those our GN boxes? Yes, Randy. Yes, they are. Yeah, there's like 800 some odd. That's not even all the boxes, but I think there's about 800 boxes you saw just stacked in those images. I think that's about all the room we had. So, yeah, crazy. All right, so let's get into it. In 3, 2, 1. This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, episode number 442. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network. I am your host, Riley Bowman, and joined today by Matthew Maruster.
Super excited to be back, man, and be with you. And we got a lot of listeners today or viewers today, so it's going to be cool. We got the Shooter Ready Challenge, so I'm pumped, man. Pumped.
Yeah, we do indeed. Yes, sir. Looking forward to today's episode. A lot of legislative news updates, some really cool stories we're going to share. And yeah, talk about Shooter Ready Challenge, which is drawing on the move, which I think is a good thing to know how to do. I think it's very relevant to a lot of the civilian defense cases that we see. We review the justified saves. In fact, I think that's like next week, I think is when we do our next justified saves episode.
Sure.
The ones that we do get that have video or something with them, a lot of times people are on the move. Having the draw on the move, I think, is a very, very important skill. And specifically in this month's Shooter Ready Challenge drill, I talk about doing more than just a single sidestep because, I think you need to be able to take more than just a single step to have a reasonable expectation of avoiding incoming fire. So anyway, we'll get into that. Today's episode is brought to you and sponsored by, struggling to get the words out of my mouth there, the Laser X dry fire training software. We're huge fans. I've been using the LASR software, Laser Activated Shot Reporter program, for a number of years now. It's sometimes even it's fun just to do. We've done, like almost like a date night, or we've had friends over, or even like our kids' friends, and you could set up the laser software and in a safe environment with laser pistols, practice dry fire, various drills and challenges and things. The Laser X version of that software is the latest and greatest. It's compatible with any internet-connected mobile or computer device. Runs through your browser, so it does require an internet connection, which is probably fine for most of you, where you may be using this at home or maybe even at your office, perhaps. And so check out the Laser X software. You can get started for just like $9.99 a month or something. Very inexpensive to get started. Try it out, and it comes with these new challenges or these drills built right into the software, and that's where a lot of the Shooter Ready challenges come from. So head on over to laserapp.com to learn more and get signed up today, or to download, even if you want the classic version of Laser. That's a fine way to go as well. And speaking of which, talking about the Shooter Ready Challenge, where you can find the Shooter Ready Challenge is shooterreadychallenge.com. Go watch the video that's posted up there. We're going to talk about that content here just in a moment, and give it a try. All right. Those of you that participate in the monthly Shooter Ready Challenge, you are automatically entered into a drawing for a special prize. Some of you that are a little bit more clued in may have noted that I've stopped talking about how we're giving away ammo as the prize. That's because there's none to give away. But we have other awesome prizes that we're selecting and sending to folks. And when we get a reliable source of ammunition again, well, then you can expect that we'll give away ammunition again. So I might be able to spare a single round of 22 long rifle.
You still got to put your kids through college, so you got to save that stuff, right?
I think I have some of the, the Remington, what is it called? The Thunderbolt ammo or whatever.
Right.
It's got like kind of a gold colored bullet. So, we call it the Golden Bullet Award. Single round of 22. Congrats. You did your dry fire this month. Here's your 22. Also, our other sponsor of today's episode, and they're also sponsors of the Shooter Ready Challenge, and that is Next Level Training. And they're fantastic CERT pistols and also the new CERT stick training rifle. All great stuff from Next Level Training. We've been partners of theirs and have worked with them for a number of years now. And, I still use my original CERT pistol all the time, and it's a great training tool. So check out nextleveltraining.com. Well, Matthew, talking about the Shooter Ready Challenge, again, folks, if you missed it, the first call out, go to shooterreadychallenge.com. That's where you can watch the latest Shooter Ready Challenge video that I filmed, and it is all about drawing and shooting on the move. So I'd like to hear from you, Matthew, actually, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I saw some content from you over the weekend. You were teaching a Triple Guardian pistol course with Rob Beckman.
Yep.
And I saw a really cool thing you guys did or had access to. I've had the pleasure of using one myself. I was actually in a 3-gun match, and that was basically a tooler drill machine, if you will.
Right.
I think is that one that was made by Challenge Targets or Action
MGM.
MGM.
Yeah,
man, those are good dudes too.
Yeah,
that is a cool target setup. So basically, what it is it's pretty simple. You got a series of rails that you lay on the ground, and then you have a target stand that has wheels on it, and then it's all tied to a cable in a box, that winds up. And then somebody has a button release that you can hit. And so you put a student or somebody on the line, basically facing that target. And you tell them, hey, you've got, you don't know when the fight's going to start. Okay. Just as soon as whoever's hitting the button decides to hit the button, your cue, the thing that tells you to go, your go signal is when you see that target all of a sudden start to rush at you. Then you make the decision to draw your gun. Then you decide, or you have, once you get it up on target, then you can actually shoot that target. And that thing comes at you pretty dang quick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great training tool. I don't know what those cost, but
I can tell you because I looked.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
if you want to buy one, they're about $1,600.
Woo-wee.
Yeah. Called the Attack Target, I think.
That's the Attack Target from MGM Targets, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I saw a video of you and some of your students shooting on that thing, and I think that has great relevance to this idea of drawing and shooting.
Yep.
So tell me about it.
No, I was thinking the same thing. It was kind of interesting. I took a look at the topic for today with the Shooter Ready Challenge. It was drawing and moving. And like you mentioned, with that attack target, it's closing 21 feet in roughly between a second to a second and a half. It's not calibrated exactly, but it's somewhere around in there. So it comes in quick. And we started as a group going through and just kind of drawing stationary, right? The target starts to move, you draw and you shoot. And then we started kind of drawing and stepping offline. And then we started doing kind of progressing to facing away from the target and then from a seated position. So we kind of went through some iterations and different things. And the weird thing was that most of the students were quicker when we faced away from the target. And I think it had something to do with, seeing the button be pushed as opposed to reacting to the target moving towards you. And I don't know what it was, but almost universally, there was maybe a quarter of a second of reaction time quicker when you saw them push the button and turn, maybe, or maybe it kind of progressed that way. But and it kind of got me thinking about, a lot of times we hear a beep and then we draw and we shoot and we're all ready. It's shooter ready, beep, and you draw, and you're waiting for that that whatever it might be, a beep or the command thread or whatever it might be. But when it's movement, sometimes it's a little bit, I don't know what it is, but it takes our mind just a little bit of a second to figure it out. And it bared out. So it was pretty good. It was a good eye-opening little drill, because you realize the importance of moving in while you're shooting and while somebody's coming at you. So it's good context with what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I noticed, particularly when you demonstrated in that class against that attack target, that you did a pretty good job to move offline and put rounds on target.
Mm-hmm.
So, with regards to the shooter ready challenge, that's what we're talking about here. I mean, you have someone rushing at you. Okay. This is a very real thing, right?
Sure.
We can point to any number of, especially officer involved shootings with body cam footage that shows this. That may not be as relevant to, your regular Joes and Janes out there carrying concealed every day. But we know those instances occur as well, where you're generally in a public space of some kind, outdoors. Maybe it's at the gas station, maybe it's just on the street. But basically, you have a threat that is trying to close distance on you for whatever reason. And so, the natural response, well, there's a couple ways that people might respond. Some people might freeze, right? That's definitely a real possibility. Some may try to backpedal. So just that they'll basically just move, your threat's coming at you. You just simply move in a straight line away from them, but you're going backwards, right? You might consider turning and running, but that's probably not as likely for a lot of people. Actually, they'll probably be pretty locked in on the closing threat and doing what they can to back away from it. And then the third option would be to try to change angles, because that is arguably as effective, if not more effective, than just moving to the rear, backpedaling, right? Because you can move more quickly laterally, since you can move your feet in a more forward direction. Then you can move things backwards, and you're a lot less likely to fall, stumble, lose your balance, that sort of thing. And so, the example that I use in the Shooter Ready Challenge drill this month is basically stepping to the side laterally. Okay, and realize that the reality is that when we start trying to move or change angles on an attacker, that they will likely make an adjustment as well almost immediately and start trying to turn and coming to you. Well, that's where we end up in a lot of fights. You see this a lot, where they're very circular in their movement, because you've got two parties that one is trying to avoid or get away, or again change the angle of things, and the other is trying to adjust and to that and counter that. And so you end up kind of doing this circular dance. The reality is, an attacker that's bent on getting you is going to eventually catch you, most likely, unless you just simply are. Well, Matthew, you're one of those little guys. you move a lot more quickly probably than I do.
I don't know. Maybe sometimes.
I'm like a diesel engine, you gotta get things kind of ramped up, and then the turbo kicks in finally, turbo lag. And you're like that you're like a rotary engine, Nissan.
I'll take it. All right. I'm good with that.
So anyway, but what this is about is two things. Number one, if there's gunfire involved, changing an angle makes things a little more difficult on them as far as hitting you. But also, regardless of gunfight or no gunfight, in the case of them just wanting to tackle you, beat you, or stab you, movement buys you some time. Maybe not a lot of time, but it might be just enough for you to put into action your response. So that's what this is all about. And primarily, honestly, it's, for the way I see it, is more about buying time than it is making yourself a difficult target.
Yep.
Unless you're like really moving quickly. Okay. But even then, I mean, you can go, like Greg Elfritz did a great article, I think even with a little bit of video attached to it. And he doesn't do video very often, where they were testing movement. I think they were testing straight line and zigzagging and maybe a couple other things and then they were using man marking rounds. So he had a couple of volunteers, that were running and trying to avoid being hit by someone that was drawing and firing their simunition or UTM based gun. And so what I'm getting at is, even in those cases where someone was moving very rapidly in a lateral fashion or zigzagging or anything like that, they still got hits on them a fair number of times. And I also remember being in a class with Dave Spalding where we were talking about this very thing. And he says, he was basically remarking how he finds it a little silly that there's training that is done where we teach take a sidestep and draw and fire. Now, I'm going to, before I go down that path any further, I'm just going to add in there a caveat that sometimes, because of the range environment or perhaps the amount of space that's available, maybe the number of students you have online or whatever, maybe that's all you can do, at least in that particular drill that time. Meaning that we're getting some reps where we're incorporating some movement and we're drawing, or trying to put a round or two or however many on the target, and that's fine. But don't get tricked into this thinking that if I have a threat, an attacker, I'm going to take a single step, draw, and fire my gun. And why do I take that single step? Well, because it makes me a harder target to hit. And Dave's explanation, or his actually demonstration, is he's like, all right, students, all you in the class, point your index finger on me. Okay? It's like, I want you to follow me wherever I go. And he takes a single, but also a pretty fast step to one side. And everybody's like, whoop.
Yeah, on an inch transition.
It's like, it's not even a split second. And everybody's finger's still trained on him. He's like, you think a gangbanger with a gun in his hand can't track you just like that? Just one short little movement, maybe 5 degrees of movement, maybe 10 degrees of movement in his arm to stay with you. And meanwhile, keep in mind, they don't play by the rules we play by. They don't care if they miss and hit innocents. So in the course of that short little movement you're doing, pop, 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 they're shooting, regardless of whether they're on target or not. But eventually they're going to catch up to you and probably hit you, right? You see what I'm getting at? So anyway, my point is it's appropriate. It's fine to do some practice just for the sake of, I guess, just keeping that in the mind that I want to be used to the idea of moving and drawing and putting my gun into the fight. But you should definitely make sure that you're practicing much more or much longer spans of movement and very fast, explosive movements, not a simple little step, like explode, move, get to it, because maybe you're trying to move to a point of cover, right? Well, your goal when you have good effective cover is to get that cover as fast as possible, right?
Yeah, and I think it's the skill, right? And you're trying to build a skill. The step off to the side, it's not a drill, right? Or it's not a scenario. It's building a skill so you can apply that skill in multiple different ways, whether it's an angle, a sidestep, two side steps, whatever it might be. But you have to begin to start laying the groundwork for that, because it's not, if you've never drawn and stepped on an angle, then you don't know where to begin. So you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So I assume you watched the video, the Shoot Ready Challenge video, right?
Yep.
As far as learning to do this, what's something that stands out in your mind that you would think people needs to hear about?
I think one thing that stood out to me that I think will surprise a lot of people if they've shot, and if they're used to shooting and moving laterally and things like that, and they're kind of familiar with the concept, is kind of breaking it down and thinking about the movement itself being the same speed, but how quickly we shoot, how accurate we need to be is how fast we can shoot, not that we're necessarily moving slower, right? So it's like you're trying to move quickly because the purpose is to move to cover or get distance or better position. So theoretically, we wouldn't say, well, because I need a more accurate shot, I'm going to move really slow, because that might be the context that works at that moment. But really what we're trying to do is move quickly to get, better our position or get a better position. So, and I thought that was a good point that you made about, we're shooting as quickly as we can see our sights. We're not just slowing down so we can shoot more accurately, if that makes sense. But that was something I liked.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. And you're spot on in that, because one thing that we see fairly often as instructors when we're teaching students about shooting on the move or just incorporating movement into, say, a draw, is that sometimes the movement, actually quite often, the movement will match the pace that, like, where their brain is at in terms of the difficulty of the target and the shot that's being made. Even if it's with the draw on the move, and because they recognize that the target they're trying to hit is kind of difficult, a lot of times that movement won't be quite as aggressive as it should or could be, because in the brain they're already thinking, well, that's a hard target and I got to make sure things are really lined up. And so I'm going to go slower, and then everything goes slower. The draw goes slower. The movement goes slower, So we got to be, that's a really important thing to realize and to be aware of, and to try to avoid that pitfall of, allowing your movement to suffer and not be what it needs to be to hopefully keep us safer. Again, we're thinking in terms of buying time, getting to cover, or possibly making ourselves a harder target to hit. And so, the movement's got to have a purpose. It's not moving for the sake of moving, right? It has a purpose and a mission behind it, right? And that usually means that this is an aggressive, violent encounter that we are in the middle of that requires aggressive movement and action. So, there's a really fascinating video out there of Gabe White, instructor out of, I think, Washington State. I think he's up in Washington, maybe Oregon. I think he's Washington. I'd love to take a Gabe White class one day, but he's actually demonstrating shooting while running and being pretty darn successful with it. Like, he's running laterally to a target. Okay. So, and he's running, like sprinting dang near, not just walk fast, right? He is running all out and putting multiple shots, high center chest, cavity, pretty reliably. So what does that tell you? Well, I think it's a couple things. Number one, there's shooting skill. Obviously, shooting skill is always involved in shooting a gun, right? So there's a point where there's a level of competency we must achieve in just the pure raw shooting, so that we can run the gun effectively. Number two, there's probably some things that we can do with regards to the walking or running technique that may smooth things out. But when you're all out running, I don't care who you are, it's not necessarily smooth. It's not smooth at all. So what I'm convinced of is that it's the difference maker there is that his vision is so in tune, if you will, with the target and the relationship of his gun / sights to that target, that he's able to see what's going on, recognize, and make split-second decisions to run the trigger. Okay, meaning that your gun's bouncing across the target very quickly, right? You see what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
And you can train the eye and the brain. It's a lot of just, some of this is just figuring out, getting used to what it looks like, and getting used to what's an acceptable sight picture when things are kind of crazy, if you will. It's true. This is the same thing when we're shooting rapid strings of fire. You know, I just spent a couple days with Rob Latham. He sees the movement of the sight. He's tracking the sight the whole time that gun's firing, right? Most people go, how is that possible? It's going, like this. The slide is cycling so fast. How can you see it? It's a blur. You can see it, but you got to, like I'm a lot better now at it than I used to be. I wouldn't say that I'm perfect at all times. I think there's probably times I lose that, but I'll tell you that sometimes, someone will see me shoot, say like a bill drill, and be like, well, how do you know, like you're aiming those shots and putting them on target? Because you're seeing and you're tracking the gun as it's recoiling. And it happens so fast. I mean, I'll tell you this much. You don't have time to make corrections, at that speed, meaning that, I see my sight, my gun coming, my front sight coming down, or my red dot coming down, and I recognize where that's going to be is off the target or is not where I want it or whatever. You may not have time to make that correction, and fix that before that next shot goes off. But eventually you start catching up to that, and you can make, I know that one went a little bit high right, so I know that the next time my gun returns from recoil, it's got to come down a little bit more low and to the left to get back on target, right? So anyway, we could go on and on. My point is that it is absolutely possible to shoot while on the move, and I think it's valuable training to do. All right, and definitely I recommend and encourage you to go and take training courses where you're able to do this and learn from a competent instructor that can really show you these things. All right.
Can I just add one thing in there to nail your point home? During this 3-day class that we taught over the weekend, the first day we run bill drill. And so we had students run the bill drill. And these aren't like brand new shooters. These are shooters that, some of them are IDPA shooters and think that good skill set to begin with. And by the end of the week, we're running, we time moving bill drill as well. They were running the moving bill drill as quickly, or not sometimes quicker, than they were running the initial bill drill standing still with fewer hits or with fewer misses by the end of the day or by the end of the week. So it to your point, it is all about understanding your speed and working the trigger in your sights, and how quickly can I squeeze the trigger, how quickly can I see the sights and work that. And once they start to pick up on that, it's like, and then they go back to the stationary bill drill, and it's like they can't miss. The target seems like it's huge. So
yeah,
it is. It's a cool thing to see.
And since you brought the moving bill drill up, let me explain what that is in case people aren't familiar. I imagine there's other shooters or instructors that have done something similar. But basically, we created the moving build drill as part of the curriculum that you were just teaching this last weekend, as an exercise to give people that opportunity to practice shooting while on the move. And the way we set it up is, traditionally a build drill is done from 7 yards. We do the moving build drill from 5 yards. Again, there's movement involved. It's more challenging, right? So we make the moving build drill, as far as the distance concerned, a little bit easier. But also, here's the other reason why it's moved up a little bit closer, is that the angle of the target changes more quickly when we're closer to it. And so the whole point of that moving build drill is to learn how to shoot on a changing target, a target that is not static, that's moving. You're moving. It also appears the target's moving, right? So it requires, tracking that target and the gun and keeping everything in line as things are moving. So, keep in mind that there's some of this that we're talking about. It's not necessarily meant to be as a discussion of tactics that, should I move while shoot while moving, or should I move really fast from point A to point B or to a cover or whatever and then shoot? Not talking about that. Just simply talking about the skill of shooting while moving, which I promise you, if you can shoot while moving, like Matthew just said, it seems so much easier when everything is static. So it's good practice and it's good drill. And we run the moving build drill both directions. So the student will start, say, on the left, and they'll go left and shoot moving laterally to the right, and then they'll reset, reholster, and then they'll shoot it going from right to left again. And then we take that total time of those two runs, because usually a right-handed shooter finds it easier to move to the right, and a left-handed shooter finds it easier to move to the left. So when you're a right-hander moving to the left, you're a bit disadvantaged because it's just more awkward to get the gun oriented at the target that way. So anyway, good stuff, man. So folks, go check out the Shooter Ready Challenge. I think you'll enjoy it, and there's some good stuff there. I think you'll want to watch and learn and listen to, and then practice this and dry fire. In the drill, I think I try to do at least 2 steps, depending on your setup at home or wherever it is you do your dry fire practice. I mean, if you could take 5 steps in your living room, in your basement, in your backyard, in your garage, the more steps you can do while you're doing this, the better. Okay. And the idea is that you want to start the movement first. It can be kind of simultaneously, but you for sure want to be moving by the time your hand gets to the gun. And then the gun comes out, and if you can take those shots, I think it's just 1 shot in the case of the Shooter Ready Challenge drill this month, that's fine. But take that shot while you're moving. If you can do that, even better than if you move and draw and you get to this other position and then you fire your shot while you're standing still. That's not going to be quite as effective if you take that shot while you're still in motion. So anyway, let's move on to some legislative news, Matthew, unless you have any final thoughts.
Nope, you hammered it home.
Gunsandammo.com reporting, there's actually a lot of stories we could have pulled from, but reporting on the California magazine ban update. This, of course, after the United States Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ended the California magazine ban. Well, ended is a bit of a stretch, because what it is the Ninth Circuit Court, a 3-judge panel, ruled that the large, as they could describe it, the large capacity magazine ban that it has existed in California for some time, that it is unconstitutional. But because this is the way appeals and court cases like this go, it's still a process, right? It was a 3-judge panel that ruled on this Duncan versus Becerra case. The Attorney General of California, Becerra, he can choose to, he can ask for an en banc review, meaning that they will take the Chief Justice of the Ninth Circuit Court, and then they'll pick 10 other justices, I think, at random. Okay, because there's 40 of them or something in the Ninth Circuit Court, and so they'll take 11 judges and that's what's called an en banc review. So a little bit more. Well, you get a broader, you get more variety of opinions and perspectives, obviously, in a situation like that. And that's where it's certainly very, it's very likely, okay, just to be realistic about this, that the larger panel of judges, the en banc review, will end up going the other way. It's entirely possible, okay, because the way the system works, the law still stands in place as of right now, while these legal challenges are still proceeding. Okay, so if you were in California, or if you thought that, hey, cool, they ruled in favor of Duncan on this case, and now I can go get whatever magazines I want, and believe me, a lot of people all of a sudden started ordering mags online, and companies online started selling to Californians too. Mm-hmm. Probably a tad early because they didn't understand how this stuff works. Well, a lot of those have had to retract and have sent emails clarifying, saying, we've got your order, we're holding on to it. So when this is all said and done and the stay is lifted, then we'll ship your mags to you, right? Or you can ask for a refund or whatever, that sort of thing, right? That's basically where it stands as of right now. Is we're waiting to see what the state of California's next step is. I imagine they're going to request an en banc review, and even after that, whether it's Duncan or the state of California that's appealing to the next level, it could go from there to the Supreme Court, and the stay could still stay in place, meaning that we may not, even if the end result is a Supreme Court ruling that in favor of Duncan, it's going to be a while until you can actually buy and ship to California large capacity magazines.
Yeah, I saw one. I don't know if you happen to see it too, but I saw one company was getting a lot of flack because they said, hey, we're not going to start selling our high capacity mags to California and stuff. And customers were trying to tear them apart, saying, you're not for freedom and you're holding out, and all other companies are selling them. Like, dude, we have lawyers too, and our lawyers are telling us, this is not settled and we shouldn't be doing this and that. And sure enough, kind of the prudent decision to kind of hold off and see and make sure how it would go played out, because there, like you said, there are a lot of probably upset customers on the other side, right? They're like, where are my magazines? They're like, well, we're holding them now. Well, so.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and you're talking about Magpul, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yep. They're not dumb. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think the attorney, I could be wrong in this, but I think one of the attorneys working on that Duncan case in California is somebody that Magpul works with or has worked with. So I saw a post where, they were talking about having consulted their attorneys, and including an attorney in California that's well acquainted with the situation. They're like, ain't time to start selling yet. So yeah, it's just, everybody got really excited, but it's still a process. Okay. And that process exists for a reason. We are a nation of laws, and as much as there are flaws in our court system, it's still one of the finest, if not the finest, in the world. And more often than not, works pretty darn well, considering things, right?
Yep.
So, when people talk about how messed up the courts are and stuff, you have to realize that, things that go before the courts are not easy decisions. I mean, they may seem like they are to us. There's a lot of factors at play. And thank goodness we're well beyond the times where, you try to decide who gets custody of a baby and split it in half. All right. So I'm happy with the way our system works, generally speaking. Okay. I did want to actually comment real quick on something there, and I closed that tab too quickly. But let's talk real quick about the one of the judges involved in this, it was a split decision. Okay. It was a 2-1 decision. And one particular judge, Judge Kenneth Lee, has gotten quite a bit of attention because of his own background. And it is a unique background, very appropriate, I might say. I mean, he certainly has a unique perspective. And Judge Lee is of Korean descent, grew up in Koreatown in LA. And during the LA riots back in, what was that, 94, I think?
92.
Or 92, that's right. He basically grew up, in that era and seeing that kind of thing happening, and how you had all these Koreans and other people, okay, many people were in the same boat during those riots. Things were getting crazy and out of hand right quick. And, they were up on top of the roofs of the businesses and apartments and stores and armed to the hilt. And because the police couldn't protect them anymore. And we're seeing that very similar kind of thing play out in many cities across the country right now. Denver, after being quiet for a few weeks, just the last couple of days, more riots kicking up again here in Denver because of something that happened in Wisconsin, right? It's remarkable, to see how this is all playing out. And the reality is, when things get crazy, the cops can no longer protect you. And Judge Lee, I think, absolutely understands this.
Yeah, I mean, Judge Lee, he's in place for times such as this kind of thing, right? Like, it's crazy when I saw the initial, headline about him and his ties. I was like, wow, what a great perspective to see this kind of coming around again. And you can tell in his decision what he said. He's about the ban, and it said that high capacity, or what they term as high capacity, right? Like anything above whatever they're banning, right? They consider that high capacity. Mm-hmm. We know it's standard, but whatever. They're typically used for lawful purpose, right? They're commonly owned. They're not unusual in the sense that they've been modified to do something more dangerous or anything other than to hold ammunition like any other magazine. So it's weird because he's saying, if you take this away, now you're striking the ability. They're striking down the ability for the average person to do what is normally legal, and which is to carry ammunition, where and he knows firsthand the inability for police to protect you. And if he would have had, if all those people would have had 4-shot, 5-shot revolvers, and that's it, and they're going up against people with ARs and AKs and Uzis and whatever they want to have, they're at a severe disadvantage to be able to defend themselves appropriately. And so I thought, if you read his opinion, you'll kind of understand you kind of see it through his eyes.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to, if the law burdens people, in being able to enjoy their Second Amendment protections. And the court did find that citizens are burdened by California's law, and that the ban does not enjoy, this is quoting from his opinion, a presumption of lawfulness. Now, why is this important? Well, because where other similar cases like this one have failed, in many, particularly circuit and appeals court decisions, or even at Supreme Court level, an intermediate scrutiny standard has been used in determining those cases, because, and that's basically fancy lingo in the courts of saying balancing a state, particularly like a state government's responsibility of protecting the public with an individual's right to something, right? And in this particular case, these two justices that went, in the majority decision of the Duncan case, applied a strict scrutiny standard, which means that really what that means is that the state has to, the ban or the law or whatever has to be very narrowly applied so as to limit the burden it places on the citizens. And that narrow tailoring of the law is such that it's got to be specific to protecting the interests of the people of the state of California.
And it has to be necessary. And I think they have to show some sort of correlation to, the effect of this, right? Like it can't just be some nebulous idea, like high capacity magazines are bad and people will die if you use them. And it's like, well, show me where. And when you don't have any evidence, it's so broad. It's the opposite of narrowly focused. So
Yep, that's right. So it was the approach the court took in this case is a promising sign, and hopefully a sign of things to come in the future. And I'll tell you, if this case were to make it to the Supreme Court and become the law of the land, it would even further strengthen the Heller decision and really give the Second Amendment, as it applies to individual rights, a lot more teeth. And that would be a boon to individual Second Amendment rights across the country. So we'll obviously be following this one.
Big time.
We got to move on due to time. Turning to New York State, where New York State Senator Zellner Myrie, I think it's a she, her name, and I'm just actually trying to confirm that. I have no idea. Senator Myrie, I think it's Myrie, a Democrat out of Brooklyn, introduced a bill last week. And here's the thing. Basically, the foundation of this is crime, and particularly violent crime, is skyrocketing in New York City right now. So the answer to that is we need a bill to go after not just guns now, because it's very difficult to get guns in New York City through legal means. Quite a permitting process, particularly for handguns. It's really, really painful to go through the whole permitting process, all the hoops that make you jump through, inspections and approvals and all this stuff. So that's not the goal necessarily, but they are wanting to introduce a bill that would amend New York State's public nuisance law to allow the state to prosecute the sale or manufacture of products as an activity considered to be illegally or unreasonably create or maintain a condition which endangers the safety or health of a considerable numbers of persons. The language in the bill doesn't mention firearms specifically, and I'm quoting this according to article in dailycaller.com. Myrie made clear in comments to the New York Daily News that guns are exactly the kind of products Senator Myrie, has in mind. Mm-hmm. So the idea here is basically find a loophole, a means, a route around the federal law known as the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which keeps people from being able to basically file frivolous lawsuits against firearms manufacturers, blaming them for how their guns are used. Essentially, it would make it impossible for manufacturers in the state of New York to manufacture guns. And in that way, make it more difficult for people, I guess, to purchase or get a hold of guns in New York. Because that's the answer. That's the reason why crime is on the uptick in New York City, is because, companies keep making guns, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not even just like, hey, we want to ban companies. We don't want to issue business licenses to arms manufacturers. We want to criminally prosecute people who manufacture a firearm, right? And it's crazy. Like, if you think about the overarching broadness of this language, I mean, you could prosecute soda companies, right? Like, oh, because it's high in sugar and it's going to make people overweight, and we have a high problem with diabetes, and that's a huge health concern, and it taxes our healthcare industry, and it's crazy. It's insane. And I mean, I don't think that this has any chance of doing anything realistic. It shows really where the heart of these people is, and they'll do anything they can to divert from the actual problem, and blame it on something like firearms. And I mean, it's so crazy when you hear, people say, well, anybody who supported the PLCCA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce Act, like you said, which just basically doesn't allow people to criminally, hold companies liable if somebody uses a firearm that they produce to shoot somebody, right? Like, you can't go and sue, SIG or Glock or whatever. They'll say, well, this person voted in favor of these big corporations, so they can get off scot-free if somebody gets shot. And it's like, it's such a twisting of reality. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy. When I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is insane. It's lunacy.
Yep. Yeah. They'll stop at nothing to take away guns. That's what this is all about. So I have no idea where this one will go. We'll see what happens. And I suspect that there would be some federal court challenges on a law like this, because it would go right against the PLCAA law. So I don't know. So we'll see what happens. Moving on to the Second Amendment Foundation, SAF.org, is basically a press release on their website from another court victory. Now, everyone's focused on the Ninth Circuit Court ruling in the Duncan case and the success there, but we've overlooked another win in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which unanimously ruled, so it wasn't even split, that the New Jersey Attorney General Gurbir Grewal, I guess, is subject to the jurisdiction of Texas courts in a First Amendment case brought by Defense Distributed. All right, so this is really, I mean, could they then try to take this case up in the appropriate circuit court? Well, I suppose. But in this decision, in this case, they make it clear. Okay, it said the Fifth Circuit noted, and basically what this is. So let me back up. Defense Distributed is the company that made a big name for itself trying to put out there into the public domain 3D print files, basically, for gun stuff. Okay, receivers, various gun parts. I think they had a file called the Liberator, which is based around the old Liberator gun from World War II, something to that effect. You basically could make a single shot pistol from a bunch of 3D printed parts, right? Probably just firing .22 long rifle, right? Nothing fancy, but hey, it's a gun, right? Here's the thing. Here's what's fascinating and probably blows a lot of lesser educated folks and people that are not pro-gun, generally speaking. It has been a tradition in this country and has been the law for a long time that it is completely lawful for an individual to manufacture for their own use a gun without license, without restriction, for the most part, right? And so Defense Distributed basically brought guns to the people. With this advent of 3D printing technology, it's like, one of the hardest things to do, if you don't have the skill to do so, is to just be able to create the model, the 3D model that can be turned into the language that the 3D printer can then print, the various parts and pieces. And so Defense Distributed was all about putting out there these 3D models people could then download and print and make their own guns and gun parts and things. So very controversial lawsuit after lawsuit. In this case, Attorney General Grewal of New Jersey very clearly has a vendetta. They're out to get defense distributed, to get them shut down, right? To make it impossible for them to continue to exist as a business. And the Fifth Circuit Court noted this and said, yeah, it's clear that in this case, the state of New Jersey, because Attorney General Grewal represents the state of New Jersey, was out to get this company, was out to take them down. And there's also some acknowledgments of the freedom of the First Amendment, the freedoms that are secured in the First Amendment. So pretty interesting case out of the First Circuit Court of Appeals. Your comments, Matthew?
Yeah, I know you covered it. It's kind of a complex thing because it deals with standing or jurisdictional type stuff, but overall, like exactly what you said, and it's pretty interesting. I think this has been going on for years. I mean, I remember hearing about this going into legal problems. I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago, and yeah. So it's been a constant battle. But if you go on the internet, there's all kinds of things that probably aren't great on the internet, right? And like things that probably shouldn't. If you were going to ban everything that could potentially harm anyone or make anybody upset, the internet would be like four sites. You know what I mean? Like, so this attorney general specifically, not just just went after this group, but like he named, I think, the founder by name and really had like a personal vendetta against the dude. So they said, no, you can't really do that. You're an attorney general. And they wanted to sue him. And he said, yeah, you can get sued because, we can, even though you're in New Jersey and the company's in Texas, they can sue you. They have standing to sue you. And so stand by for that. So,
yep.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's good stuff. All right. Let's see here. Let's go now to the state of New Hampshire. Tell us about this vetoing occurring by Governor Sununu.
Yeah, so a little bit more good news. Governor Sununu, and I might be brother of the other Sununu that's been in politics forever. But anyways, Governor Sununu, Chris Sununu, vetoed legislation. Basically, it was red flag legislation, House Bill 687. And he said, let me pull it up. He said that, I'm trying to see his wording. They're basically extreme risk red flag laws. And he just said it violates their Fourth Amendment rights to unreasonable search and seizure, and they don't have a speedy trial or the ability to represent themselves or face their accusers and stuff. And so he vetoed it, and which is a huge. And this was among other bills. There were a couple other bills and things like that, but this was the one that's pertinent to firearms, and which is cool because in the trend of just rubber stamping these in, the idea of, we want to be on the side of, whatever the new wave of red flag, and let's arrest or take and ask questions later. He's kind of stood up and said, no, we're not going to do it here. And so that was pretty bold of him.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a big win for New Hampshire, and this is, they have, because of the last major election, there was some big gains in their legislature on the Democratic side. And definitely some concern, because they've been able to get some bills passed that, a couple of years ago, they wouldn't have been able to get through. But thank goodness that, they have Governor Sununu keeping their best interests in mind as far as vetoing what essentially are bad laws, right? that's the way our government works, and it's a good thing it works that way. That's why we have all these checks and balances. On the one hand, you could argue that, well, these are the representatives and state senators that represent the people that voted for them, and this is the will of the people. But that's just one side of the coin. The people also voted a governor that represents their interests as well. And we got to have everybody in agreement before we put into what would be burdensome and terrible laws. Mm-hmm. So good
checks
stuff.
Checks and balances.
Indeed. Yeah. And I'm not very good at balancing my checkbook, but I'm just kidding. So that basically brings us to the end of our legislative news stories updates today. I hope that you folks enjoyed getting some of the updates from around the country, and also learning and hearing about the Shooter Ready Challenge today. Before we let you go, we do need to draw a winner for the weekly prize giveaway. As Matthew's getting ready and pulling that up to pull up the winner's name, I'll remind you that every week the giveaway resets from Tuesday to Tuesday, basically each week. You have the opportunity to sign in and sign up every week. That means constantly ongoing chances to win stuff, but you got to sign up every week. We don't just keep all your names in, ongoing. Okay. So please make sure you go to concealedcarry.com/podcast prize, get signed up for the giveaway for this next one. In fact, Matthew, why don't you tell us real quick, what is the next giveaway?
The next giveaway, we're doing a free month of LASR X, Laser X, and to go along with our Shooter Ready Challenge episode today.
Awesome.
Yep.
Excellent. So one of you lucky folks out there will win a free month of Laser X. And so that's next week's prize. Make sure you get signed up, concealedcarry.com/podcast prize, and share with your friends and family, because the more shares you get, the more people that sign up, the more entries you get. Everybody wins, hopefully.
Yep.
So what are we giving away today, Matthew?
Today we're giving away a DVD, The Top 10 Things You Probably Don't Know About Self-Defense Law, from Andrew Branko Law of Self-Defense.
Awesome. It's a great DVD. I encourage you to watch that. If you're not a winner today, you can pick up a copy of it. Awesome. So let's get a drum roll going and pick this week's winner of the top 10 things you didn't know about self-defense insurance from Andrew Branko. Here we go.
The winner is Larry.
Larry Vickers?
No, Boss Dog Larry. But you are the lucky winner. We'll be emailing you. So look out for that, and then respond to the email, and we'll get your DVD out to you.
Congrats, Larry. And again, just a reminder, sign up each week, and maybe you too can be lucky winner. So with that, we're going to let you go. Folks, take care. Have a great day. Be safe out there. Put in the work and the time and the practice that it takes to become the self-defender that you wish and desire to be. So with that, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe, so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care. Guys on Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here with us today. Take care, and we'll be back here Thursday for the podcast. I also thought I'd let you know that I did miss Shop Talk yesterday. My bad. And I'm going to do Shop Talk tomorrow. So there you go. Just a little update on that. So we'll catch you later. See you later.